The old master Kaido lived in a wooden cabin, atop a hill where the wind always seemed to whisper secrets. There, amidst the murmur of the trees and the distant echo of the river, he received those who sought answers they could not find in books or in the voice of other men. One morning, a young man named Rin arrived. His eyes reflected restlessness. He bowed respectfully and spoke. "Master, I have traveled many days to find you. I am a painter, but my inspiration has faded. My brush touches the canvas, but it leaves no mark. I feel that my soul is empty. How can I regain the spark?" Kaido watched the young man in silence, then slowly stood up and pointed to the landscape around them. "Look around you, Rin. Tell me what you see." Rin scanned the scene with his eyes. The cherry trees swaying gently, the stream spiraling between the rocks, a pair of birds circling the sky. "I see nature, master. It is beautiful, but I have seen it many times before." The master smiled faintly and replied, "If you think you've seen something many times, then you have never truly seen it." He turned and began walking down a narrow path. "Come with me," Rin obeyed, unaware that his search for inspiration was just beginning. Rin followed Master Kaido down the narrow path, slowly descending the hill. They walked in silence, listening to the whisper of the wind and the crunching of leaves beneath their feet. After a while, they reached the edge of a stream. The water flowed crystal clear, reflecting the sunlight in golden flashes. Kaido stopped and pointed to a smooth rock in the middle of the stream. "Sit there and watch the water," said the master. Rin hesitated, but obeyed. He took off his sandals and carefully hopped onto the stone. From there, he observed the movement of the water closely. The way it slid over the stones, how it created whirlpools, and how, effortlessly, it continued its course without stagnating. "What do you see now?" asked Kaido from the shore. Rin furrowed his brow, trying to find a meaningful answer. "I see the water flowing, always moving. It doesn't stop, it doesn't hesitate. It simply continues its course." The master nodded. "And tell me, what would happen if you tried to catch the water with your hands?" Ren plunged his palms into the water and closed them quickly. When he opened them, only a few drops remained, which soon vanished. "I can't hold it," he whispered. "That is inspiration," said Kaido. "It is not something you can possess or capture by force. Like water, it flows when you allow it to. But if you cling too tightly to the idea of finding it, you will only make it slip away." Ren looked at the water, thoughtful. For the first time in a long while, he felt something stir inside him. The sun began to set on the horizon, painting the sky with golden and violet hues. Rin stayed on the rock, watching the endless flow of the water. Something in those words of Master Kaido resonated within him, but he still didn't know how to apply them. "Master," he asked finally, "if inspiration is like water, how can I let it flow without it slipping away?" Kaido picked up a twig from the ground and dropped it into the current. They both watched it spin, submerge, and resurface, following the river's course effortlessly. "Do you see that branch? It doesn't try to control where the water takes it. It neither resists nor clings. It just lets itself be carried." Ren nodded slowly. "But if I do nothing, if I just wait, won't I be wasting time?" The master smiled. "The water doesn't wait, but it doesn't hurry either. It doesn't seek, but it always finds its way. Inspiration doesn't come with impatience, but with openness. When your mind is too eager to catch an idea, it closes off to what is already in front of you." Ren looked around. Everything was there. The fresh breeze, the melody of the water, the light dancing on the surface. Suddenly, he realized he had never stopped being surrounded by inspiration. It was just that his desire to find it had blinded him. "So, what should I do, master?" Kaido picked up a leaf from the ground and placed it in Ren's hand. "Listen, Look, feel, and when the moment comes, let your brush move like the water. Ren closed his eyes, feeling the light weight of the leaf in his palm. For the first time in a long time, his mind was calm. The wind blew gently, causing the leaf in Ren's hand to rise and spin before landing in the river's current. The young man followed it with his gaze, watching it float effortlessly, with neither haste nor resistance. Kaito observed his expression and said in a serene voice, "Now tell me, Ren, why do you paint?" The young man blinked, surprised by the question. "Because I want to create something beautiful," he answered after a moment. The master shook his head. "That is the cause of your suffering. If you paint to create something beautiful, you cling to an outcome. And when beauty doesn't come as you expect, you become frustrated." Ren lowered his gaze. He knew those words were true. He had spent too much time obsessed with perfection, with the search for something grand, and in that search, he had lost the joy of simply painting. Kaito picked up a stick and began drawing lines in the dirt with light, fluid movements, without a plan, without worrying about the form or the result. Then, the wind blew again, and the dust covered the strokes, erasing them in seconds. "Art is not the destination, it is the path," said the master. "If you paint as the water flows, without fear of losing what you create, inspiration will always find you." Ren felt a shiver inside. For the first time, he understood that his block didn't come from a lack of ideas, but from the fear of not being up to them. He took a deep breath and looked at his hands. His brush had been waiting all this time. Ren and Master Kaito began their way back to the cabin. The sun was fading behind the hills, painting the sky with warm, soft tones. The young man felt that something within him had changed, though he still didn't know how to put it into practice. When they arrived, Kaito lit an oil lamp and took out an old rolled-up scroll. He spread it out on the table and revealed a landscape painted with impressive delicacy. Mountains wrapped in mist, winding rivers, birds in mid-flight. "This I painted many years ago," said the master. "What do you see?" Ren examined it closely. Every stroke seemed to move, as if the painting still breathed. "I see life," he replied. "Not just mountains and water, but something that flows in every line." Kaito nodded. "When I painted it, I wasn't thinking about making it beautiful or lasting. I just let my hands move like the wind over the grass. If you observe without wanting to possess, if you create without the fear of losing, inspiration becomes your companion." Ren felt a sudden impulse. He searched for his brush and unrolled a blank canvas. For the first time in a long while, he was not afraid to face it. He closed his eyes and listened. The murmur of the wind, the creaking of the wood, his own breath. When he opened his eyes, his hand began to move. He didn't think about the result. He didn't think about whether it was beautiful or worthy. He simply let each stroke flow, like the water in the river. Master Kaito smiled silently. Ren's brush slid across the canvas with a lightness he hadn't remembered feeling before. There was no effort, only movement. There was no judgment, only presence. His mind wasn't trapped in the idea of a perfect outcome. It simply followed the flow of each stroke. The shadows of the evening stretched across the cabin as Kaito watched silently. He didn't interrupt or correct, because he knew that true inspiration isn't imposed but discovered in the space where there is no fear or expectation. After a while, Ren put down the brush and gazed at his work. It wasn't a detailed painting, nor was it meticulously planned. It was spontaneous, alive, almost as if the wind and water had painted through him. The young man exhaled deeply. "I don't know if it's good," he whispered, "but it's the first time I've painted without feeling a weight in my heart." Kaito nodded. "That means you've finally understood." Ren looked at his hands, the same hands that once trembled with the pressure of creating something great. Now he only felt gratitude. The master stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the moon was beginning to appear in the sky. Inspiration is not a thunderclap falling from the sky, he said calmly. It is like the nighttime breeze. It's always there, but you only feel it when you stop and let it pass through you. Ren smiled. For the first time in a long while, he felt that his art and his soul were one again. The night enveloped the cabin in a cloak of stillness. Ren sat in front of his canvas, gazing at it without anxiety, without the need to judge it. Something inside him had been freed. Master Kaido poured 2 cups of tea and sat next to him. For a while, they drank in silence, letting the warmth of the tea blend with the serenity of the moment. Finally, Ren spoke. Master, I always thought that inspiration was something I had to search for, something I had to catch before it disappeared. But now I see I was wrong. Kaido nodded slowly. When you chase the wind, you never catch it. But when you stay still, it comes to you. Ren smiled. Then, if inspiration is always there, why does it sometimes seem so distant? The master placed his cup on the table and looked at Ren gently. Because we fill our minds with noise, anxiety, the desire for success, the fear of failure. All of that clouds what is already present. When you empty your mind and allow each moment to be enough in itself, inspiration appears effortlessly. Ren looked at his painting again. It wasn't perfect, but it contained something he hadn't found in a long time: sincerity. He leaned against the wall, feeling a peace he had never experienced before. "Thank you, Master," he whispered. Kaido smiled and, without saying more, blew out the oil lamp. The night, with its immense calm, took care of the rest. The nighttime breeze entered softly through the open window, carrying with it the whisper of the trees and the distant murmur of the river. Ren closed his eyes and listened. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel the need to rush anything. The next morning, when the first ray of sunlight touched the cabin, Ren woke with a different feeling in his chest. He got up without hurry, stepped outside, and gazed at the vast stretch of hills bathed in golden light. Everything seemed new to him, as though he had never truly seen it before. Master Kaido appeared beside him, holding 2 cups of tea. "What do you see today, Ren?" he asked with a slight smile. The young man took a deep breath and let his eyes wander over the landscape without trying to define it, without looking for words to confine it to a meaning. "I see the world just as it is." Kaido nodded, satisfied. "And now, what will you do?" Ren took the cup of tea in his hands, feeling its warmth. Then he smiled. "I will paint, but this time not to create something beautiful, just to let the world flow through me." The master didn't say anything more. It wasn't necessary. The sun slowly rose, bathing the earth in its light. And somewhere, the river's water continued its course, without stopping, without doubting, just like inspiration itself.